All right, moving on to our next Patreon request, and this one comes from Lamonta Benson, who asked me to do a list of the 10 forgotten Spider-Man villains. So, as always, if you guys would like to have a Patreon request done, just hit the link in the description box below. Head on over to my Patreon, hit the second tier, that'll allow you access to do so. But anyway, let's get started with the video. So honestly, Spider-Man, much like Batman, Spider-Man and Batman, let's not bullshit ourselves. Spider-Man and Batman have the best rogues gallery of any comic book lineup. But among those rogues gallery, there are like some forgotten villains that just don't make the mark. And today we're going to be talking about some of Spider-Man's lesser known rogues gallery. Because there's a lot. Like, I think Batman, in terms of like who has more popular villains, memorable. Popular and memorable, two different things. But more memorable villains, Batman usually gets like more memorable villains, and the forgettable villains, even when they show up, you're like, oh, it's that guy, or it's that person, it's that woman, or that character. Spider-Man, you're like, that was a Spider-Man villain? Like, I just thought he was made up for the comic. I can't tell you how many times I've come across a character and been like, that was a Spider-Man villain? Yeah. So this isn't a top 10 list. These are just 10 Spider-Man, and there's so many. Like, you guys can comment below about what other forgotten Spider-Man villains are out there. And I'm going to talk a bit about them. Starting off, we're going to talk about Vermin. Now, Vermin is kind of known, but he's more intrinsically tied to another Spider-Man of a storyline called Kraven's Last Hunt. He was basically a foil for Kraven when after he shot Peter and took on the black suit. Kraven went after Vermin and killed him. Vermin has shown up, and he's basically been last time I saw him, he was in Jed McKay's Moon Knight, and he's just making Vermin clones of himself and eating people. That's really what it is. So there you go. Vermin right out the gate. He's kind of a villain that just kind of occasionally pops up every so often. Our next villain we're going to talk about is Coldheart. Coldheart, I don't think, has made any appearances since her initial appearance, which was during a story involving the Hobgoblin. Like, literally, she shows up during a Hobgoblin storyline, and she barely matters. Because her whole thing is that she wants to kill Spider-Man because he couldn't save her son. So Coldheart looked like just a ridiculous costume. She was just this weird 90s getup with a frozen sword. It was dumb. She literally plays a part, because this was the time when Hobgoblin, like Macendale, was possessed by what would become the Demo Goblin. So that was kind of more of it, and plays more intrinsically tied to that. But Coldheart was literally a villain that I read. I'm like, that's it. That's all we're doing with the character, because I haven't seen that character at all. So when you want to talk about forgettable villains, literally just show up for a story arc, and that's all you need to be absolutely fucking forgettable in my book. So we're 2 down. Let's talk about some more. Starting off with one of our next villain is one that's been since Spider-Man's early days, and I do stress very early days, and that is the Gibbon. The Gibbon didn't actually start out as a Spider-Man villain per se. He actually wanted to be a hero. The Gibbon basically had ape-like strength and whatnot, and he actually got made fun of a lot in life. So he made a monkey costume and called himself the Gibbon, and actually confronted Spider-Man like, hey, I think you're really cool, and I want to be your sidekick. And Peter immediately just starts busting out laughing, not because he's being mean to the Gibbon. It's more like he just thinks the idea of having like a sidekick, and also, and keep in mind, Peter was having a really shitty day. What else is new? In that issue. So he was just like busting out laughing because he thought this was so hilarious at the idea. And Gibbon took that the wrong way and became a villain. Last I saw of him, the Gibbon was in a Marvel Apes comic. You guys remember Marvel Apes? When they tried to make that a thing, like to make lightning strike in a bottle twice because that was going on during Marvel Zombies? Right? You guys remember that? I regrettably remember Marvel Apes. So I don't even know if the Gibbon is still alive or not. Anyway, next up we have Chance. Chance was again another villain that occasionally shows up. He's a mercenary, and he's more known for being the background villain to like the villain that led up to Venom. Like Venom was in the background of that storyline where Chance, who's a gambler and a thrill seeker, who was hired to kill Spider-Man. He's got all this ridiculous gadgets and whatnot, and he always likes to, have all these kind of take your chances and things like that. He likes to be a thrill seeker and gamble his life on shit. I haven't seen a lot of him, and it's a villain I wouldn't mind coming back. I don't know if he's still alive or not, but I would like to see Chance again in the near future. So we got 4 down. Let's go to the halfway point. Our next villain is technically known. He is technically a known character because he's kind of a joke character, and he did start out as a villain but became a good guy. I actually don't think he was a joke character, but he was a villain who tries to be a hero every so often. Will-O-the-Wisp. Will-O-the-Wisp was this Irish character who was a villain that Peter would occasionally encounter, and he had all these wind-based and spiritual powers. Will-O-the-Wisp is basically he has tried to be a hero, and at last I checked, he is going on the he is a hero or trying to be. But yeah, he's more known for being a good guy, but he started out as a bad guy, and occasionally he does fall to kind of villainous vices, shall we say. So there you go, the Gibbon. I said the Gibbon again. Will-O-the-Wisp. Next up, let's talk about we're at number 6 now. Let's talk about some modern day forgettable villains, because I guarantee you they're forgettable. So, as we all know, Brand New Day was kind of a pretty mediocre comic. It was like a whole new era after ruining Spider-Man fans' lives forever. And it was basically like, we're going to shell out new villains, and one of those was Mr. Negative. Arguably the best villain to come out of that, and is now like a known Spider-Man villain. So, Mr. Negative has gotten a lot of... I'm going to tell you, Mr. Negative was the only new villain to really stick. Everyone else sucked. And I'm going to mention these two back to back. Those being the Freak and Paper Doll. The Freak was basically like you couldn't kill him. Like he was like this flesh doll creature who Spider-Man couldn't harm, and he would just evolve into he couldn't kill him the same way twice. I haven't seen that villain at all. After New Ways to Die, I haven't seen him at all. The other character, like I said, is Paper Doll. And Paper Doll is basically a character who can flatten her body and climb on. She's so forgettable. And she was a obsessed fan of Spider-Man. I haven't seen that character in so long. I think she's dead. So yeah, there were other characters that showed up in Brand New Day, like an all-new Vulture and Rhino. I don't know if I'd include them because they're forgotten as well. But I don't know. It feels like cheating if I'm to do the second version of every character. Because if that's the case, that's technically the third Vulture. There was the second Vulture, Blackie Jargo, back in the 70s, and Toomes killed him. Same what he did with the other Vulture. So, but it would just be kind of cheating, really. So I just decided to bring up the Freak and Paper Doll because those guys were pretty fucking forgettable. Those two were incredibly fucking forgettable. So what are we on? 6, 7? Yeah. So we got 3 more. Let's talk about 3 more Spider-Man villains. Our next Spider-Man villain is another character that literally everyone forgot. It was a plot line that everyone forgot about, and it had to be brought back and fixed by J.M. DeMatteis. That is Proto-Goblin. Proto-Goblin was basically a professor named Miles Van Adder who Norman used a prototype version of the Goblin Serum on to make a red Hulk-like goblin creature to attack Spider-Man in his early years. In the story Shadow of the Green Goblin, he basically just melts to death. He just melts to death after being manipulated by Norman's wife, who is still alive. It's a whole thing. I did a review on that comic a while ago. But Proto-Goblin was so forgettable, they literally just made a comic to kill him. That was really it. That was just the whole point. Next up for our next forgotten Spider-Man villain isn't really, I wouldn't say forgotten, but he's definitely when he shows up, you're like, oh yeah, him. and that's Leapfrog. Leapfrog started out, he's another one of those characters that started out as a villain, but eventually became a hero. You've seen him in She-Hulk, but I haven't seen him in comics in a while. I think he's become like depressive and alcoholic, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong. And finally, for one more Spider-Man villain we're going to talk about, there's so many, guys. There are so many Spider-Man villains that we could talk about. But the one I'm going to talk, the other one I'm going to talk about is Mountain Marco. Man Mountain Marco was just a dude who was really strong. That's what he was. The last time I saw him was in Jed McKay's Moon Knight. He does this a lot where he remembers these villains. And Moon Knight fucked him up good in the comic. So yeah. There you go. But the thing is, there's so many Spider-Man villains, other forgotten Spider-Man villains. So I could throw a dart at the wall and keep talking for another 10. But yeah, so there you go, guys. Those are 10 forgotten Spider-Man villains. You guys tell me in the comments below, what are some other forgotten Spider-Man villains that you've suddenly remembered or always thought about or think they need a comeback or a retool? Once again, I'd like to thank Lamonta Benson for this Patreon request as well as continued patronage. And like I said, if you'd like a Patreon request done, just hit the link in the description box below. Head on over to my Patreon. Hit the second tier. That'll allow you access to do so. But other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.